Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. My guest today is the President of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa. Mr. President, thank you very much for being with us here in Addis Ababa, where the African Union Summit is taking place.
You're welcome.
Mr. President, in your country, we've seen a wave of protest a couple of weeks ago and a crackdown. People died. NGOs denounced serious crimes. What is your response to those very grave accusations, and how is the situation now in your country?
It is true that there were violent, very violent demonstrations from the time they began the demonstrations on the 14th, I think, to the 15th or 16th of January. They were so violent that they attacked the police stations, burned police motor vehicles, killed the policemen, destruction of property, beating of people. It was so violent that the police was overwhelmed by such violence by these people. It showed that it was well organized, countrywide. Every single town, they were coordinated to attack government institutions, in particular police stations and so on. And we now realize that it was so well organized because prior to that day, we now hear that some people went around, NGOs went around saying that allow your relatives, your children to go tomorrow for demonstrations. If they are arrested, this is the place where to go. We have people who are ready to defend you. If you are injured, this is where to go.
So you're saying there was a plan?
Total plan. It is now, we have now discovered this was well planned.
I want to go, before you go more into details about that plan, I still want to go to the crackdown, especially by the military. We've seen accounts of women saying they were raped. We've seen claims by NGOs that there were 17 extrajudicial killings. You're talking about the violence by the protesters, but clearly there was violence by the military and very serious violence.
I'll deal with each of the issues you have raised. With regard to the rape, allegations of rape, we have both through print media, radio and TV, appealed to those victims to come forward, report to the nearest police station. If you're not comfortable to report at the nearest police station, you go to the nearest church and they report the abuse you underwent. We have only one single case that has come up in Chitungwiza. The rest, we now know that the women who were paraded was just made up by some organizations. And some of the women have now left the country, have been shipped to the United Kingdom. The few who are still in the country, they are being moved from house to house, and we are trying to track them down. It's all stage managed.
And the killings?
We are challenging anybody, local or foreign, to produce the women so that the world can see them and say, this is what happened. We would want to see those. And with regard to the other issue you have mentioned about beatings.
Yes,
it is killing. Yeah, we also want to see, you said judicial killings. This is where the army is directly and purposefully killing people.
Yes.
We would want to see evidence. We see all this in social media, but we would want to see evidence where the 17 people were killed. Where were they buried?
This is just
invented?
Yes,
you have asked the questions. Allow me to reply.
I do allow you.
Let us have the relatives who will say, I lost a son, I lost a daughter, I lost a cousin, I lost a relative by the hands of the army. I'm not saying that the army did not overstep their powers. It is possible individual army
officers. Are they being pursued?
Some have been arrested. Some have been arrested in that regard, the police. We have also arrested so many, over 1,000 people who have been caught in the destruction of property and beatings. They're all going through the judicial system in our country. And perhaps over 40% or 50% by now have gone through the judicial process for hearing the courts. Some have been convicted, some have been discharged. I'm aware that the highest sentence that have been meted out by the
Against
judiciary.
military?
Yes. No. The sentence meted out, not by the military, by the civil courts.
No, but against military personnel as well? Have there been sanctions against them?
Those who have been arrested, the military are court-martialed. Those get court-martialed. But the rest of those who have been arrested go to civil courts, and the highest sentence so far is 7 years. The lowest I'm aware of is about 3 or 4 months. And others are being discharged because they were found innocent. And according to our laws, those who are under 18 cannot be detained. Once we discover that they are underage, they are released to their parents. This is how we do it. And the process is going on.
Calm is back now in Zimbabwe, or is it precarious calm?
No. Total calm has come back to Zimbabwe. We are now so satisfied that this thing was predetermined, pre-planned,
by whom?
Well-oiled by both local NGOs who are well funded, but also the opposition, the MDC Alliance, whose theme throughout, even during the campaign for our general elections last year, said that as long as they do not win this election, in Shona they say they will put Jecha Musadza, meaning that they will put sand into the food. So this is consistent with what they've been saying throughout.
You consider this as a coup attempt in a way?
Regime change is the better word.
It
is a regime change agenda, which is not new, which has been a phenomenon visiting Zimbabwe throughout the last 18 years.
I want to get to something I heard that you had told people, is that it was not only NGOs, not only the main opposition, the MDC, but also foreign powers. I'm
not aware of the involvement of foreign powers.
I heard that you said this to several people.
To whom? If somebody has told it, I've never accused any foreign power. We are fully aware of funds that have come to NGOs operating in our country. I'm also now with security intelligence aware of people who came to do workshops and training of our people in the opposition.
Where were they coming from, those funds and those people?
We have already submitted the names and the passport numbers to the respective embassies in Zimbabwe.
So
that will come out at the appropriate time. We've submitted the names and the passport numbers.
Can I venture and try to find if it's the UK and the US, for instance? Am I wrong in saying this?
I can assure you that I will not build a wall against your own imagination. I will not build a wall. You can imagine the way you want. It's a democratic country, Zimbabwe. But we have to deal with evidence. The evidence that we have got, we have submitted to the relevant authorities, and we need a reply to those relevant authorities.
So you've asked Western countries to explain where those people and those funds were coming from.
You are now trying to say, are they? It means that you are aware that the Western countries are involved in regime change.
No,
that's what you're telling me.
I'm just trying to figure out what you're saying.
I've not said so. I've not said so. You are aware that Zimbabwe has been subjected to regime change throughout. We are struggling against sanctions imposed by the West up to today. By the EU and by the Americans. Those sanctions have been removed. They're still there.
On the contrary, if I follow what a British minister said in recent days, two things. One, Britain will not support Zimbabwe rejoining the Commonwealth. That's number one. And two, Britain wishes the European Union to extend sanctions against Zimbabwe. What is your reactions?
Now, one, when Britain made those 2 points, did they consult Zimbabwe?
No.
When we apply to join the Commonwealth, we don't apply to Britain. We apply to the Commonwealth Secretariat. Britain is just a member of the Commonwealth.
An important member, obviously.
But
what is your reaction? I mean, are you annoyed?
No, the Commonwealth has never told us that they are not considering our application. The view of one member is not the view of the Commonwealth. You understand? It's very clear.
Are you afraid that there will be more sanctions from the EU, or are you?
The sanctions are already there. They have not been removed. So what are the new sanctions they're talking about, which have been imposed?
Right.
We already are suffering under these sanctions, the DERA and EU sanctions.
Right. Are you asking your African peers here in Addis Ababa to push towards lifting the sanctions?
We've been doing that for the last 18 years. We're not changing. We will continue to appeal to member states in SADC, to the continental body, to assist us, have these countries that have imposed sanctions on us to realize that it is hating our people. We have not offended anybody. What we are doing is good for our people, is good for Zimbabwe.
Right. What about the former president and his wife? I remember that during the campaign, there was an attack on a campaign event, and that you had hinted that Grace Mugabe and her supporters were behind an attack against you during the campaign.
No, they didn't participate in the campaign. Grace Mugabe and the cabal, which surrounded our former president, was the result or the cause of what happened, which resulted in the stepping down of our former President Mugabe. But we have no problem with him. We are looking after him, looking after his family.
So they shouldn't be prosecuted for anything?
No, no one is above the law.
Okay.
If there's any crime, anybody will be prosecuted except a sitting president in terms of our law.
Right.
But anybody else will be prosecuted. Even the president, when I leave office, I could be prosecuted if I commit any offense.
Thank you very much, President, for coming on the France 24 set and answering all our questions.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching this edition of the interview here in Addis Ababa on the sidelines of the African Union Summit.